Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Today we are doing shells. So as you might know, it is my dream to be an entertainer. So if you are at all entertained by this video, please like it and consider subscribing for more content. So first, a bit of housekeeping news. I am super short, I realize this. I bought a cushion to sit on so that I wouldn't have to be sitting on my feet. When I go down, I'm even lower. But I can't get it out of the tube. It's one singular long piece, and I've tried. I've sat there, I used my foot, and I was pulling. So I need Phil Harbor's help, but every time she's home, I keep forgetting to ask her and have her help me. I cut it, but it's really thick. So this hopefully will be the last video where I'm super short, but I am still working on that. Another thing that I'm working on is the formatting of this. So this is gonna be a little bit different. This is sort of like a tutorial because I have actually done this before, but I'm gonna try to make sure that it's a little bit faster paced, shorter, and just kind of show you how to do this easily. But before we begin, leave your troubles at the door, relax, lay back, make sure you do maybe a little stretch. I used to do a grounding breath with you guys, but I feel like that just kind of lowers the energy. So let me know if you do like to have a little bit of mindfulness before we begin, but if not, just kind of let your troubles go away and enjoy the insanity that is about to ensue. So quick little story time. My friends and I all dressed up as the Koopa Troopers, Bowser's children who then became not his children once Bowser Jr. came around, but we all know the truth. So there are 7 of them. I was Wendy, who I always picture as like Harley Quinn if she were a mutant turtle. No one dressed as Morton because everyone hates Morton. Don't feel sorry for him. He knows what he did, all right? Morton, shut it. So I did all of them except for 2. And so I walked one of them through it and I thought I still had that footage, but it's okay. It's been years. I'm sure it looked horrible anyway. The footage, not the advice. So this is for anyone who wants to make a turtle shell. And this is good for, TMNT or Koopas, really anyone who has a shell. This is how to make a shell. You can be as elaborate or simple as you want it to be. And when we walk through it, I think you'll really see how easy it is actually to do this. Also, best of all, it's cheap. You can use anything. I actually prefer fleece because it doesn't look furry necessarily, but it's soft, it's plush, especially if you have little ones dressing up for Halloween. They can't get hurt on this at all. So all that is required for this is cardboard, your fabric of choice. For this example, I am using felt, but again, I probably would recommend fleece unless you really want like PVC to make it look like it's actually like a hard shell. Either a sewing machine, honestly, I think a sewing machine would be best, but you can hand sew this if you'd like. And stuffing. And of course, some sort of strap to make the backpack portion. And I just wanted to show you how much fun you can have with it. So this was Phil Harbor's. She was it Lenny, the guy with the ball and everything? So she made her accessories. So she actually crocheted her thing versus my Wendy had, this was my first, I did this one, then I did everyone else's, and then I learned, and I was like, wait, I can make it way better. So then I made my second one. So I did actually start with this, but I realized it was gonna stretch too much. But yeah, so you can make it look however you'd like. This is just to kind of get you started, so you start thinking like a crafter so that you can complete the whole look. So really the most important part is measuring whomever is going to be wearing this. Most of the adults that I did were between 18 to 20 inches along their back. So you just need a cardboard piece that is that long. So this one itself actually will work. You would just then cut an oval. The cardboard itself is about 19 tall, 15 wide. So up and down the back, is 19, and then across like where the shoulders is about 15. That's for the average adult, I would assume. I made all of these without seeing my people, so I had to guess what they were. If you have a child, it will naturally be a little bit shorter. If you are a grown man, it might be a little bit bigger. So just keep in mind, you do have to measure the back, but it doesn't have to be, you know, particular. This is really kind of like a backpack, you know, one size fits most. And yes, just don't make it too small. However, for the sake of this, because I want to do this right here in front of you, I just cut a really tiny piece. So pretend that this is the back. So the trickiest part of this, and I don't know if I'll be able to show you, is that it domes. So it actually goes in. You can see this. It kind of dips in. So how we create this is you take the flat piece of cardboard, but then you actually bend it. So you, I bent down 2 sides first, and really it's the sides that go up and down, so vertical. And it will naturally bend a little bit this way as well. You can bend it there if you want a rectangle here to kind of portray the actual shell pieces. I'm sure that has a name. But kind of like origami, as long as you bend it that way so it knows to go that way, that should be enough. So we cut 2 pieces of the main fabric. I'm sure you could measure. I just find it easy to just outline it so that it's gonna stay taut when we sew the 2 pieces together. So I'm just gonna draw around the circle. Well, I have misplaced my craft scissors. They did not make it down from the atelier, but I will go ahead and just cut with these normal scissors because this is just felt. Okay, and now you're gonna wanna cut a circle just slightly smaller than the one you did. So I would actually go ahead and cut the same size. Just gonna pin this here so I can follow suit. All right, these are my 2 pieces. And now I'm gonna go ahead because I drew on one of them, so I'm gonna make that one my smaller one. And you're just gonna cut off the amount you would as like seam allowance, right? You're not gonna cut off a full inch, just a little bit. Again, we're just trying to create tension. Let the cardboard remember that it needs to keep that shape instead of flat, right? I'm sure there are several ways you could do this. You can also probably make it even stiffer, you know, just make sure that your seams are tight so that it doesn't pop out. So one step that unfortunately I can't do right now because I don't have my machine down here, but I would strongly recommend is actually drawing out the pattern of the shell with your needlework. So literally what you would do is just take the one top piece and you just kind of draw the 6 sectagon diagram, diamond maybe, the diamond type of shape. And then you just kind of, I actually figured out 3 main ones because you don't want to do too small because it might not read well from far away. But then also that is going to be a pain to sew, even though you're not sewing anything together. So you draw it out with pencil or something very light, or you eyeball it if you are, again, risky. But you literally just feed it through the sewing machine. I would do a real stitch. You can do like a basting stitch. I would go ahead and just do a stitch. You don't want this to pull out, but you're not sewing it to anything. You're just feeding one through and following the lines like you would, you know, like a coloring book. Just follow the dots. That's the connect the dots. That's not a coloring book. So I am going to cheat and kind of show you what that looks like. However, I normally, instead of this, I would sew it. I'm not gonna hand sew it. You could just kind of go through, but for the sake of time and how it would look, I don't know that I could really get the stitching to look great like that. So the important part is to make sure that your diamond, however you know, the size or however you design it, is even. It looks even. This pen is stupid. We're just gonna use a Sharpie. We are bam in your face, turtle. There we go. And then kind of follow along the lines, right? So with this one, you have, oops. There's 2 lines here, so there's 6. So there's 6 lines. So keeping it all the same size is important. I am eyeing this right now, so this is not great, but that's fine. Do as I say, not as I do. So then this one will connect, so you have 1, 2, 3, and then you go in, There we go. 1, 2, 3. This one kind of already formed itself. Okay, you see how it's kind of taking shape? Again, it's not perfect because I'm doing this right now freehand. I actually did draw out these 6 sides and laid down a piece of paper and I drew with a pencil. So this is what happens when you don't do that. Oh, you see here, I somehow messed up here. So this was our starting one. We know that's right. This needs to go like that. Oh, that's why that one came out too big, you see? There we go. All right, you know what? Maybe they got wounded in battle and it had to regrow and it grew funny. Who knows? No one's really gonna see this detail. It's going to be way more subtle if you sew it. I am using Sharpie. So just keep that in mind. You know, perfection is the enemy of progress, right? So there you go. It looks okay, kind of like a soccer ball. Now it's the fun part. So this lays here. So again, it's a little bit interesting. I, again, would sew this on the sewing machine and I would sew the edges. I would then flip it out and you can shove this in. If you don't want to do that, assuming your turtle has an outer ridge, you could go ahead and just sew as is, just letting you know. You can do it a little bit cleaner if you want it to be clean. But essentially, you're gonna sew this piece of cardboard in between the 2 pieces. Oh, I sat down to sew. Sorry, I'm really short. Don't sew it completely. Leave a hole once it's in here because you're gonna wanna stuff it. Okay, so it should be really it should be pretty tight, but doable. And to keep the bend, I have been going in and then I'm going to kind of push past the cardboard into the front. And then when I pull down to knot it, it's pulling the fabric just slightly lower. So full disclosure, I made all of these shells in 2017. So I don't remember all the tips and tricks. So I might have done this part by hand. I don't remember. They didn't take me too long to do, but I did do like 4 of them in a row and then I went back and did a 5th. So my life was turtle shells for a good minute there. It has been a few years. So my recollection of how I did it is a little bit skewed. So just full disclosure there. This part definitely needs to be by hand. But then you can kind of, and I hope you can see it in this, maybe up here you can see where it is bending in. Do you see that? Can you see this? That it's naturally bending. Hopefully maybe the shadows will show up on the thing. It's a subtlety. Down here you can see that it does. So I'm sure you can make it more of a perfect circle. Keep in mind, turtles really aren't a perfect circle. So when you're doing this, again, because I say this out of personal experience, your perfectionism and worry is going to get the better of you. This is not, it shouldn't be perfect. Turtle shells aren't perfect. And yes, cartoons look perfect because it's easier for the animators to draw circles. Although, I don't know, I'm sure they struggle with that at sometimes. Yes, at some points in their life. Voila, basic turtle shell. And my raw footage says 29 minutes, and some of that was the beginning and the intro and getting stopping for animals. So if you have a very simple design that you need, your journey with me kind of ends here. Fast forward to how to put on the straps. I think most turtles do have an outer shell of some sort. Yes, all turtles have an outer shell. What I mean is the outer ridge around this main turtle shell. So this part is fun. I'm sure there is a mathematical way you can do this. I personally like to just kind of literally roll with it. So I'm starting here and you can see I'm measuring where I'm starting on the turtle shell. And then I just rotate around and I notate where to stop. So it's essentially this whole thing. So what I'm going to do is just very simply double it over so you have a front and a back. And I'm just gonna cut this whole strip off and I will show you why it doesn't matter at the end. Now you can get super detailed with this, but judging by what I did, you don't really sew it together. You don't really worry about like filling this up. You could do it like a pizza, you know, fill this and make it, you know, really bulge out so that there's a really thick circle around. It depends on what your turtle looks like. But for these turtles, what I ended up doing was, I cut way too much because this is such a tiny turtle base. So I'm gonna make sure this is a little bit tinier. But basically, you're going to have the outside, have the base, and the top as well. So top and bottom will each have it. And you're gonna sew it all the way around. And then where it meets, we're gonna do a fun trick to hide that seam as much as possible. So let me cut this because I cut way too much. For this sample, if you're making this for someone else and they're not nearby, it's about 1.5 inches on one side, so about 3 inches is the thickness that you would need if you're using the like 19 inches by 15. Then this round thing is about 3 inches. Again, just remember, slight seam allowance. You can tell on mine, I actually did flip it a little bit so that you could not see the raw edge on top. But on the back, because this is going to lay across your back, I didn't worry about that, and I just trimmed it down after I sewed it. So I actually did pin this and sew this on the machine, but for the sake of right now, I'm going to hand sew this. So wherever you start, just leave the last, you know, maybe inch unsewn from your starting spot. And you know, to be honest, while I'm doing this, I do prefer to use a sewing machine, but you know, I was debating. I was like, should I bring my sewing machine down here? Other than like the noise not looking, you know, great on camera. I like to prove that you can hand sew this stuff. Yes, it takes more time. Yes, it's a little bit trickier. And yeah, it doesn't look as neat as when you use a machine, but it can be done. So don't let that stop you. If you want to cosplay or you want to make your own Halloween costume, or you've got a play and you need to put your own costume together, you can sew by hand. It's not that difficult. And you know, from a normal distance away, you really are not going to be able to tell. Now, if you enter a costume competition, yeah, the judges are going to be able to tell. But then it also shows that you have love and you put your whole love into it. I once sewed my very first full suit mascot costume, Kero from Cardcaptor Sakura, by hand because I was a broke college student and my sewing machine broke. So in order to get it done, I put it in my backpack, and in between college courses, I was in college, I would just sit out in the lawn or in the library and sew. And I hand sewed that bugger. And if you don't know what a mascot is, look at any sports games and those things with the funny heads and they're fully costumed out. They have every piece of inch of them is covered with, yeah, I did all of that by hand, with the exception of the head. Phil Harbor did my head. But yeah, I even made my booties for that. So it can be done. Just don't let yourself make excuses. And just as for the record, I am sewing through the cardboard, so don't feel afraid to do that. You probably will not have to if yours is bigger. But I don't know, if you're making a shell for a Barbie doll, you're probably gonna have to hand sew that, and you're gonna sew through the cardboard. Luckily, it's not too heavy or too thick, so it's not an issue. All right, I am done. I admittedly got a little lazy towards the end there, and I messed up once. We're just gonna continue. So with this trick, it's gonna be a little bit hard with the size of this, and I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see this, but we are going to try. So I'm gonna cut how much I'm gonna need. So let's see if I can explain this. So these are the right sides, correct? You have extra fabric. You're going to flip it so that the right sides are lining up. Only sewing the right sides together. We are not sewing this to the shell itself. There are other ways to do this too, like the ladder stitch, but I'm bad at that. So now when we flip it over, you can see that it has a cleaner edge. Now, I did not measure correctly. I can't work really small, but I can show, I have proof that I did it correctly. See this? That's the correct sizing and taking your time. So it is stitched on the inside, so when it's flipped so that the right sides are out, it is clean. It should come out nicer for you guys. I left too much fabric, so that is my issue there. But now you can do, once it's flipped over, if you can't get the whole thing, you can try to do the ladder stitch. I always mess up with it, but for the sake of this, I'm just gonna continue along and close it so that it's all one continuous loop. Now I'm going to attach that portion to the shell so that it is all connected. At this point, you might be asking, can I hot glue this? Yeah. I don't really like hot gluing fabric. But if you are using a rougher fabric like felt, fleece could handle it, but you are going to get like particles, like little fabric particles coming off. You're gonna get it stuck on your hands. But yes, technically you probably could just glue this on. Depends on how much you're rushing. Honestly, if you know the basics of sewing, I really don't think it's worth the time that you're gonna save. But if you really do not even know how to thread a needle and you don't have time to figure it out, yeah, you can glue this. You could probably glue all pieces. Everything that I've done, you could probably just glue it straight to the cardboard. Again, I don't recommend that, but do what you gotta do, All right, so at this point, don't pay attention to this pointy part. If you are a Ninja Turtle or the tortoise and the hare or another probably more realistic or simplified turtle, you're done here. You just need to add the other bits. You know what I forgot? I forgot to stuff this silly thing. Before, I'm sorry guys. I feel like I got hit by a truck today and I am doing my best to keep up my energy. So before you sew it all together, so at that point, I'll insert it here at that point where I said, okay, let's continue. You would put stuffing, and you would put the stuffing on the outside of the cardboard up to the main. So this was our circle, our outside where you can see, and our cardboard here. You're gonna stuff in between here. So the part that is touching your back is just cardboard and fabric. You don't stuff this part. That's why you can have a nice hole like here. You only stuff this part right here. It's not mandatory, but it helps smooth out this up here. You can see how it's square and bendy. This would have been smoother had I stuffed it. I apologize. Oops. So for this final step, if you are a scary turtle, I did come up with the easiest version for these guys. Is actually just a simple one seam. So it's just a triangle effect. Where's my Sharpie? So it's like a tooth. So we're just gonna have two pieces like this. And I am not gonna do it to form that because that is just way too small for this. I did draw out the pattern. These three were the same size. So let's see, 3 inches by 4 inches, I wanna say. And then this one is 2 inches by 3 inches. So initially, I thought it needed a base. So let me cut this out and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we have 2 pieces. So they're gonna get sewn together. And initially I did think I needed to open this up and cut a circle around to have a base for it. However, when I realized that you are not going to see that at all, you don't need that. So you can just have these 2 triangles, don't bother with a base. When you stuff it, you can actively then just sew it along here. Technically, you could probably add these before you put it all together. If you wanted to sew it on directly, like with a sewing machine. I did not do that, so I can't tell you how successful that would have been. I wanted to see where to lay it out because some of these, I made them thinking, hey, this is gonna be the top. And then by the time I stuffed it and actually made the shell, totally became the bottom just because of how the shape formed. Because the lowest slope should be the bottom of it. That's just personal preference. Your turtle can look however you want it to look like. But yeah, so I would put these on last. But you know, if you are a better seamstress than me, or are great at really lining things up, that's the thing, is like I'm not great at that part. I would leave it to the end so you can really eyeball where you want the spikes and evenly lay them out that way. You can also use this if you don't want it to be a backpack. You could totally just make a pillow, and in which case I would stuff the whole thing. I guess technically you don't even need the cardboard part of it. I don't know. But if you want the structure of a shell, but then it to just be like, you know, on your couch rather than a backpack or something, or hang it on the wall, totally you can use that too. I mean, this is kind of really flexible in how you use it and whatever you need to use it for. All right. So you sewed the right sides together so that when you flip it, the right side is outside, so it's nice and hidden. And now I was using colored thread so you could see it. So obviously it's a little bit more, well, these guys got pushed in. They survived a move and like 3 years just like falling all over. But yeah, so they're more pointy, and you can technically see, you're gonna see a seam on anything. It's like a plush toy, but it's not like weird. At this point, we're gonna stuff it, and this time not forget. And what I would do, I guess let's just use this, it'll be weird. Oh, actually that looks like something, huh? So, you stuff it the size and the thickness and everything the way that you want it. And then you're going to lay it down on this. Now, it's not a spoiler, you can see that there are rings around these. So that's gonna hide your seams. So you don't have to worry about that at all. So I am going to tack this down, and that is what I did on the main size ones too. So you're gonna tack it down so that it will help hold it up for you. Okay, so it's staying on by itself. And then now you just sew around the edges. All right, so now that our tooth, horn, spike, whatever you want to call it, is on there, we are ready to hide it. So you could technically leave it like this, but I know at least with the Koopa Troopas, they lined it. Theirs actually is lined. So I'm gonna take this one that I cut already. So these are easy enough to just, you know, measure around. You could sort of do it how I did it before. The 3x4 has 10.5 and goes to 7.5. With these, I took it and I folded it over, and then I just sewed that bit to here so that there is no other, you know, there's just one seam of this down together. You actually can go ahead and sew it together so that it is a ring. It just kind of helps it sit there so it's a little bit easier. I do remember that pro tip now. So you can do it the exact same way kind of that we've done before, or you can go ahead and sew it together like this, and now you can flip it so that seam looks nicer. I'm actually gonna pinch that seam and sew through to the end. So now when I lay this down, we're just gonna scoot it on down. It's gonna be kind of snug, which is great because we don't really want it flying off. I'm going to go ahead and sew it down. So just like with the horn, the spike, the tooth, whatever you wanna call that thing, we're gonna sew this outer ridge to the shell. As long as you're hiding the stitches of the spike, then you really don't need to attach it too hard. So it's not a big concern. I've never had a child wear them, so I don't know how much more aggressive they would be, especially if they're just going to wear it to like play around the house. But if that's all they're doing too, then you can easily just replace it and tack it on as needed. So we're just going to make sure it stays on for the look. And there we go. It is complete. And now you can see that you can't see the sewing of the, why are all these weird fuzzies going around? You can't see the spikes sewing at all. So it looks fairly clean. Obviously, I kind of winged it on the outer rim. I apologize for that part. and I wish I had remembered to stuff it, but yours, I'm sure, came out fantastic. And now it's just time to make it a costume. So how do you attach it to yourself? So just two things to kind of keep in mind. You want to designate a front or a top and a bottom. So on mine, I would probably say this is the top and this is the bottom. So if I were wearing it, so it would go on her back like that. So these are her arms. Actually, let me go ahead and move your hair, please, darling. So it would attach right there. There's no secret technique to doing the straps. I have debated, like, you could put like a hidden pocket in yours to put like your wallet or something, because that would be really, really secure. But remember that would add heft and weight to it. So these themselves weigh, I don't know, 2 pounds? They don't really weigh anything. So how I made it was I attached it to the top, and then the bottom, however long you wanted it, I would attach it. So I just left extra and I just safety pinned it. You could just safety pin it if you didn't want to sew it. The problem with this one, for example, is that it's a little bit flimsy and it pulls. This is that like PVC, the fake faux leather stuff. So sewing it on here, I didn't know if it was gonna be sturdy enough to be on my back. So I went ahead and just used this, like, I don't know what it is. It's just like tote bag or whatever. As you can see, Fell Harbor's, oh, these are her wrist things. Fell Harbor just sewed it on, but you crocheted it. So just to kind of give you some ideas. So however you want it. So fabric, really, you can use whatever you want in terms of fabric. For the durability, probably, you know, not the vinyl, but whatever it's called, that like tote bag kind of rough material that's sold like in the notions. Really anything that's sold in the notions. You could be frilly lacy or match your shirt or your outfit. You could probably use the like the see-through, like invisible. I wouldn't use just a wire, like a thin, almost like the thread of it, you know, like the fishing thread, just because that would kind of cut into you. It's not heavy, but just the you know, the weight of it all day, that kind of thing. You could potentially also pin it or sew it directly onto a shirt if you didn't want a strap. That's easy enough to do. It's fabric, so you can sew that. But usually I would just say, yeah, take this, you know, a strip of whatever, and then so that isn't, it's not really a secret. To make it look nice, I always like to fold over the ends. Line it up, on the actual one, I lined it up about 5 inches down. Fell Harbor did hers 3 inches down. So, you know, within it, I don't really know that the placing of it is all that important, as long as you have enough. If you are measuring like on a child or someone else, I would literally probably put this on their back and actually try to like measure what's a comfortable thing for them to like get on or off. You can also pin what you're about to sew on to make sure that they can do it before you actually attach it. But other than that, I mean, it's kind of guesswork on what will fit. So, and then you literally just sew it on. Again, I would make sure that this is really tough, you know, like make sure you knot it and make sure you really get through all of it, because this is going to take the brunt, pretty much all of the weight. So these 2 straps above are pretty important that you get on there and that it'll stay. Then you measure however length, again, as I said, and you can flip it, and again, you can just sew it on like this, or I just like to fold it in extra. I don't know, to me it just looks nice, but it doesn't really matter. It is important that these 2 are lined up even at the top, just so it will fall even on the back. All right, and there you have it. Barbie is modeling the shell. All right, try to fix it. She's got a lot of hair, so. But she is modeling what we just made for us. So it kind of looks like a hat, like a sombrero, but that's because I just put one on there. But But yeah, now you are ready to go fight crime or do the crime, depending on what turtle you are. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I know this was a little bit different than I've been doing. I really like kind of showing how to make things. I feel weird calling myself like a tutorial channel, but a lot of the stuff is things that I've done for myself. So I just want to show you so we can share it together. I will be trying hacks and other tips and stuff, advice that I've never tried before, and we'll see, work it out together if they are real advice or if they are not. And that is the series Nail or Fail. But this will do it. Thank you guys so much once again. Remember that you are loved, you are worth it, and whatever you are struggling with today will pass. Until next time, stay crazy.